tagliata, messa fuori, c'è Pirlo, ancora Pirlo di tacco, tiro, gol!
Hello and welcome to the AC Milan Talk podcast. I'm your host Samit Paul and I'm delighted to say that we've got a win to discuss tonight. Milan secured a 2-0 win over Sassuolo through goals from Alessio Romagnoli and Suso in a game that many were suggesting was must-win for Vincenzo Montella in order to avoid the sack. Looking at the positives to start with, I felt like Milan visibly grew in confidence as the game went on, particularly after going ahead but also in the second half. As the pressure started to lift from us with the goals, I felt like the players were more composed, more settled on the ball. They started to express themselves a little bit more. And that's definitely something Montella spoke about before the game that he wanted to see. And I think he got that, especially after the break. So definite positives to draw from the performance and the result. In terms of negatives, I would say that the first half hour was still very poor. We were very sloppy on the ball. And against a better team, I think that could have been very costly. With Napoli to come after the break, I think there's lots to be worked on still. And I'm hoping that this can still be a turning point in our season rather than just a temporary boost. But that's down to Montella and the players to use the international break as well as they can to come back and kind of build this on this platform and continue to improve here on out. So positives to be taken, but a lot more to be done. And for now, it's a boost for Montella's hopes of keeping his job, but we'll have to see in the long term whether or not it works out for him. Starting with a manager rating out of 10, I've given Montella a 6 out of 10. I still don't agree with all of his selections at times, especially the one to leave Andre Silva on the bench on this occasion in favour of Kalinic. However, credit where it's due as well. Tactics worked. I don't think Sassuolo were a threat for the most part, and that kind of set the game up for Milan to go out and win it. So relief for Montella in terms of the recent speculation over his future, but 6 out of 10 for him on the basis of this performance. Going on to the player rating, starting with Gianluigi Donnarumma, I've given him a 6 out of 10. Made a very key save in the first half and had to deal with a lot of deliveries into the box, but I felt like he did that with minimal fuss, so he got a deserved clean sheet, and I've given him a solid 6 out of 10. Zapata also gets a 6 out of 10. I think it was another steady performance from him. A couple of wobbles in possession, which he needs to cut out, and kind of almost led to the situation where we expect him to make mistakes. But overall, that's now 3 consecutive outings that he's looked good. He's been a reliable presence, especially on the right-hand side of a back 3. So a 6 out of 10 for Zapata. On to Bonucci, 7 out of 10 for the captain. Much better from him. I think he led the line much better. Produced an absolute brilliant moment of class with a goal-saving tackle to deny Simone Miseroli. And that's the kind of standard and influence that we need to see from Bonucci moving forward. That's the player that we expected from, that we were signing this summer from Juventus. He's had his troubles earlier in the season. He has improved in recent outings, so this isn't just a start of something, but this was definitely one of the better performances that we've seen from him. So hopefully this is now like a platform for him to build on and really kick on now and be that commanding presence at the back. So 7 out of 10 for the captain. Also given a 7 out of 10 for Alessio Romagnoli. Broke the deadlock at an important time for Milan with his goal. However, it was also very defensively sound, made some key interceptions. So overall, all-round performance, very impressed with him. The key now for him is to stay fit and show some consistency, as he can easily establish himself as a stalwart in this team. So 7 out of 10, another impressive performance from Romagnoli. Davide Calabria, haven't given a mark out of 10 for. He's having really terrible luck with injuries at the moment. It just seems to be one setback after another. Forced off with an ankle problem in the early stages of this one. So disappointing for him. Fingers crossed it's nothing too serious and we'll see him back in action fairly soon. Frank Kessie gets a 7 out of 10 for me. A good performance. He showed patience, quality off the ball. Defensively sound, offered a lot of coverage in front of the back line. And importantly, something that we've not seen enough of him recently, breaking forward with his powerful driving runs from midfield. Was a real attacking threat at times, had a couple of shots on target, and that real driving force from Milan from midfield. You know, we've seen him, he looked a bit tired, something was missing from his game in recent weeks, but that was definitely a much improved performance from him, so he gets a 7 out of 10 from me. Riccardo Montolivo also gets a 7 out of 10. I think, I speak for most people, I would presume that it was a surprise to see him in the starting lineup. I did fear the worst, I didn't really expect him to do well, but to his credit, I felt like he was a calming influence in midfield. Decent display, kept things simple, which could be argued is a good thing, a bad thing. Maybe should have tried more, but kept us ticking, defensively helped us, and I think overall you can be happy with his performance. So 7 out of 10 for Montolivo, but what I will add, I think he may struggle against the better teams, the Napolis, the Inters, because I feel like Milan will probably come under more pressure when they're in possession, and that's when he'll lead. That will lead to mistakes from him. So 7 out of 10 on this occasion, positive performance, but hopefully this isn't just the start of him being now like consistent presence in the starting 11. Fabio Borini also gets a 7 out of 10. He would get full marks from me for effort every week. You know, he's a tireless utility man for us, puts in another brilliant shift, runs his heart out for his teammates, which kind of makes up for the deficiencies in his game in terms of not being able to show quality in the final third when it matters. So for what we are now, for what we need, Borini is doing a lot for the team, and you can only praise him for that. And so I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. Man of the match, Suso, gets an 8 out of 10. A constant problem for Sassuolo, always looking to drop into pockets of space between the lines, picking the ball up, driving at their back line, creating something for someone else, delivering a ball into the box. Always, always, always our most dangerous threat. And then obviously produced that real moment of quality as he lashed home his 5th goal of the season in the league. So, as always, massively impressed with Suso, and I'm giving him an 8 out of 10. Çalhanoğlu gets a 5 out of 10. I think he's still too sloppy at times. There were instances where he didn't look over his shoulders, was too easily dispossessed. His passing was wayward, and we need to see more from him. Obviously, we did see glimpses. There was obviously the assist, so there were positive aspects to take away from his performance, and I'm not anywhere near admitting defeat in terms of him being a bust for Milan. I still think he can be a success for us, and as I mentioned earlier, as a general point for the team, but also it applies to Çalhanoğlu, I felt like he was more relaxed. He looked less rushed on the ball when the pressure was lifted, when we took the lead, and there were certainly positive signs there. So 5 out of 10, perhaps a little bit too harsh, but I still feel like he can get better, and he will get better as the results improve. So fingers crossed on that front. Kalinic also gets a 5 out of 10. He drew a great save out of Koulibaly just before we scored our first goal, but ultimately, overall, taking his performance in general, I think it was another disappointing performance. Didn't offer enough movement. There weren't enough runs into the channel to cause problems for Sassuolo. Didn't stretch the back line. Didn't make a nuisance of himself to kind of put himself about and make life difficult for them. And overall, he's just not really delivering anything. He's not scoring goals. He's not building play. He's not linking up play. So it's a little bit disappointing in the sense that I did expect him to do more, particularly in the build-up of play, but he's not doing that. So that's a 5 out of 10 for him. And I would argue in his defence also, I don't feel like he's getting the great amount of service, which isn't helping. Whether it's lofting balls up from defence, whether it's aimless crosses in from the wide positions, even if he does get a knockdown, I don't feel like there's enough players around him to really make him a threat. So there's too much of a gap between him and Suso and Çalhanoğlu, and that's definitely got to be something that Montella addresses over the international break. So 5 out of 10 for Kalinic. 6 out of 10 for Abate. I think he gave away the ball too much and too carelessly as he's just after he came on, but he settled into the game well. Steady presence on the right flank, and I think he helped Milan stay tight defensively. So 6 out of 10 for him. Also given Locatelli a 6 out of 10. I think he showed real positive signs in a more attacking, advanced role. Got himself about, showed a lot of energy, a bit more excitement in terms of going forward. So it was a good way for him to bounce back after a disappointing outing in midweek. So good 6 out of 10 out for Locatelli. Antonelli doesn't get a rating from me. Not enough time to really make an impact on the game. Merely introduced to kind of give Borini a breather and provide more defensive coverage. So I'm sure he'll be happy with the minutes, but no rating from me. Moving on to Twitter questions and comments. Richard Giassi at GiassiRichard3. Still not sold on Kalinic playing ahead of Silva. Not much movement from him and a bit slow. Richard, completely agree, 100%. As I mentioned there in the ratings, just Kalinic not doing enough for me. If he's not scoring goals, then he has to do more in the build-up of play. That's something that I hung my hat on over the summer when we signed him, when I said that he would do more than Bacca offered. But ultimately, facts speak for themselves. The performances are there. He's not doing that. And your point is echoed by a lot of other comments. Marco T. Romano at mromano85. Kalinic still not doing what he's supposed to do, which is to score. Would love to know why Silva isn't starting, aside from Montella's dumb ideas. But Bori Oludemi at Bori Kane's flop of the match for him was Kalinic. Why do we still play him? Again, not a convincing game. We'll get hammered by Napoli, but happy with the 3 points. Guys, completely agree with you. There's nothing that I can argue in favour of Kalinic at the moment. It has to happen on the pitch for me to kind of defend him anymore, and he's not delivering, so I have to agree with all of you. Mark at Neil_Mark. Don't underestimate the calming influence of Locatelli. I absolutely agree with that point as well. I thought he was very, very impressive when he came on. Troy Vaughan at Hark the Sound. Man of the match for him was Suso. Agreed. Flop of the match was Kalinic. And I did mention in my post-match comments that was this a potential breakthrough for Milan. Troy is not convinced. He said not even close, which, again, based on the opening half and the performance in general, I don't think there was enough to kind of really say, yes, this is a breakthrough. But let's just hope that it's more than just a temporary boost for us, and we can definitely build on this. So fingers crossed on that front. Samir Mohammed at Samir Mohammed 72. Absolutely love your analysis of the game again. Thanks for all your comments. Is Barini doing better than Ricardo Rodriguez and Calabria on both sides? I would say that he's doing an absolutely brilliant job in terms of offering energy and effort, and that's something that maybe he's doing more so than the other two that you mentioned. But I just feel that there's just that lack of quality, that it always comes back to that lack of quality in the final third. He just hasn't got it in him to really make the difference, and I just feel like we're probably better off having two natural wing-backs in those roles to be more effective in the attacking phase. So definitely nothing to knock Barini. I think he's doing a tremendous job, but ideally I'd like to see two natural wing-backs in those positions. Suso, the new Robin, always cuts in the same way and still scores. Love it. Hard to disagree. He's doing an unbelievable job of dummying, shimmying, coming back onto his left, fooling the defender, creating that tiny bit of space, all that's needed for him to whip in the ball with his left foot and score goals or be decisive with an assist. So I'd like to see a bit more variation to his game. We have seen him, take the ball down to the byline and cross it in with his right and do a bit more of a varied sort of attack. But if it's working, no need to fix it. So why not? Suso, the new Iron Robin, let's have it. Zapata is doing really well and Bonucci is starting to get in form, plus no more of those long passes. Yep, absolutely agreed with you, Samir. As I mentioned in the player rating, Zapata looking more reliable every game, so happy to see that from him. And Bonucci, absolutely, definite improvement from his earlier form in the season. We're starting to see a bit more of an influential and sort of consistent presence from him, so good to see on that front. Hakan was more visible in this match. I agree with you. I see where you're coming from. There were moments where he was definitely on the ball, he was making things happen, or he was looking to make things happen, but there's still not that consistency in his play to really be fully positive about it. So a little bit more for Hakan to do for me. Man of the match, Suso. 100% agreed. Flop of the match, Kalinic or Kessie. I'm struggling to see where the issue was with Kessie is for you. Maybe he could have done more. Maybe he could have been a bit more decisive. But for me, the flop of the match has to go to Kalinic. There's no real argument there in my mind, at least. I think Kalinic was definitely the most disappointing out of those two. So he'd have to get my vote for flop of the match. And then just to finish things off, staying on the Kalinic point, I think he's had a bit of a rough time tonight. Jojo at Fope_E. Why does Montella keep starting Kalinic? He can't finish, plus he is too slow. Absolutely agree with you, Jojo. There's nothing that I can argue in favour of Kalinic to suggest that he's done anything positive in that game. So let's hope, we can only hope, if that Montella's going to stick with him, that he can improve as it goes on and we see more from him as a goal threat, but also in terms of linking play up as well. So for Kalinic's sake, fingers crossed something changes. Right guys, that's a wrap for this podcast. Thanks for listening. Please leave your comments below. I want to hear your player ratings. I want to hear your man of the match, your flop of the match. Thoughts on Montella. Is this enough to save his job, or do you still have reservations and doubts moving forward, especially with Napoli to come, that it's just going to be same old, and we'll go back to that. And this is just a temporary boost. I will have a special podcast over the international break to keep us going, so I'll be sending out tweets about special Q&A for that, so definitely please send your questions in. But until then, and the Napoli game, it's a positive win, good result, Milan, on this occasion, an improvement on the performance in the second half, so definitely positive to take from it. Let's just hope that it can kickstart our season and we can definitely build on this. So thanks for listening. Until next time, Forza Milan.